When we look back at some of the greatest thinkers, some of the greatest minds in the history of the church, individuals like Augustine or Anselm or Aquinas and so many others, you'll notice that they loved a certain phrase to describe God. They love to say God is pure act, pure act. Why do they keep using this phrase all the time? Well, one of the reasons is this phrase is meant to guard God from any type of what they called potency, as if there was something in God that needed to be fulfilled, or as if God has to be activated to become something more than he already is eternally. You see, when we look at ourselves, we have potential. We have potential in all kinds of ways, but what that means is we grow, we become something that we were not before, and that implies that there's some type of imperfection, perhaps, that we become more righteous than we were maybe last year. But when we talk about God, that's not the case with God. He's not a God who must become something more than he already is eternally. He's pure act. He doesn't have to be fulfilled. He is life in and of himself, the God who is self-sufficient and self-existent. Well, this way of talking about God was another way of bringing Christians closer to the attribute of God's immutability. Immutability simply means God does not change. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Does immutability have serious consequences for the Christian life? It does. If God is not immutable, if he is a God who somehow changes or must become more perfect than he already is, imagine what would follow. This would not be a God that we could trust. But when we look at the Bible, what we see is the Christian life is based on God's immutability. The reason we can have assurance of salvation is because God does not change. He will come through on his promises. The reason we can trust him in the midst of very difficult, sometimes painful circumstances, evil circumstances, is because God does not change. No matter how difficult our circumstances are, no matter how often we find ourselves in flux, no matter how fluid our world is, we can rely on the God who says he does not change, and therefore he will keep us secure in his arms.